In this first video of the second part of the series The Evidence, we will begin to deal with spiritual and biblical topics. 7 biblical calculations will be explained that all point to the same date or period, confirming in a unique and unequivocal way that we are at the end times. Numbers are very important in the Bible. Each number has its own precise meaning, and all times and events have a precise order. You can see this from the first passage of the Bible, Genesis 1:1. It is made up of 7 words, 7 is the number of perfection. It is made up of 28 letters, 28 is the 7th triangular number. There are dozens of other numerical configurations that have their own meaning and are in order. For example, the 3 leading nouns, God, heaven, earth, have a combined value, not just as a multiple of 7, but of 777. First calculation. The date of birth of Jesus. This is a crucial point, the core of the entire video series The Evidence. Based on the date of birth of Jesus, we can calculate the anniversary of 2,000 years since his death. From Wikipedia. According to most contemporary scholars, the birth should be placed in the last years of King Herod, around 7 to 6 BC. The event can probably be placed at the time of the 194th Olympiad, in the year 752 from the foundation of Rome and in the 42nd year of the empire of Caesar Octavian Augustus. Let's try to understand now what the exact date is. The Bible tells us that the birth was already known by scholars who came from the East, the wise men. The prophet Daniel, in exile in the East hundreds of years before, had prophesied the date of Jesus' birth. The scholars who knew Daniel passed down this knowledge for several generations, knowing that the date coincided with a very rare astronomical event. The astronomical event was the Magna conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn, that occurs every 1,000 to 2,000 years. The Magna conjunction was distributed over 9 months, and made 3 superconjunctions between Saturn and Jupiter with brightness never reached again. This is an astronomical event that could be predicted even hundreds of years in advance. These scholars saw the conjunction in the east at the end of May, at dawn. They then arrived in Jerusalem and asked where Jesus was to be born. According to the scriptures, Bethlehem was prophesied. Meanwhile, Jesus was born on September 30th, when the conjunction was at its peak. When they arrived in Bethlehem, in early December, the conjunction was perfectly south-southwest over the birthplace of Jesus. This happened around 19:30 p.m. on December 1st, 6th BC. So Jesus was born on September 30th, 6th BC. This date is in line with the month, Easter, and age of death, 33.5 years. If we calculate 6 months from September, we arrive at March to April of the following year. So the 2000th anniversary of his death will be at Easter 2027. What other dates in Bible prophecy match the year 2027? Second calculation. The number of saints. The number of saints is 144,000. The number of days in 2,000 years is 720,000. If we divide it by 144,000, it turns out to be the number 5. 5 is the number of harmony and balance, of the saints. It is also the number of divine grace that chose them. Matthew 14:16-21, example of mercy combined with the number 5. But Jesus said to them, they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. And they said to him, we have here only 5 loaves and 2 fish. And he took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. Now those who had eaten were about 5,000 men. Exodus 30:22-24, example of holiness combined with the number 5. Moreover the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, also take for yourself quality, 5, spices, 500 shekels of liquid myrrh, half as much sweet-smelling cinnamon, 250 shekels, 250 shekels of sweet-smelling cane, 500 shekels of cassia, according to the shekel of the sanctuary, and a hin of olive oil. And you shall make from these a holy anointing oil. Third calculation. The meaning of the number 2000. These 2,000 years have been full of wars and violence, which will culminate with the Battle of Armageddon. In fact, the number 2000 in the Bible is often associated with bloody or war episodes. Matthew 1:17 states, "So all the generations from Abraham to David were 14 generations, and from David to the deportation to Babylon 14 generations, and from the deportation to Babylon to the Christ 14 generations." The period of each of the 14 generations is about 2,000 years. For this reason, the number 2000 is very important to us today. Fourth calculation, the days of childbirth. The days of a birth are on average 280 to 287. After day 287, the birth is no longer normal. The number 280 to 287 multiplied by 7 gives 1960 to 2009, which, added to 27 AD, the year of Jesus' death, we arrive at the years 1987 to 2036. After 2,000 years from the death of Jesus, at Easter 2027, added 7 years of tribulation, we arrive at the period of the birth of the kingdom. Perfectly in line with the prophecies, Matthew 24:48, and the parable of the 10 virgins. Fifth calculation, the times of the prophet Daniel. In the book of Daniel, chapter 12, an angel speaks of events that will happen at the end of time. Daniel does not understand, but the angel says that knowledge will come at the time of the end. In the year 691 to 692, the construction of the Dome of the Rock began on the esplanade of the old Jewish temple. If, according to the prophecy, we subtract 1,335 years from the year 2035, we arrive exactly at the year 700, the probable date of the consecration of the dome. If we add to 700, the 1,290 years of the prophecy, we arrive at 1990, the year of the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the return of many Jews to their land. The year 2035 should, according to calculations, be the beginning of the millennium of the kingdom of Christ. The year 2034 the end of the Great Tribulation. Sixth calculation, Daniel's prophecy of the broken tree. For decades, all the preaching of Jehovah's Witnesses has been based primarily on Daniel's prophecy in chapter 4. The interpretation of King Nebuchadnezzar's dream, about the stumps being put on the tree cut down for 7 times, is linked both to what would happen to the king and to future times. In Revelation 6:14 it is written that 3.5 times are 1,260 days, so 7 times are 2,520 days. If we add 2,520 to the fall of Jerusalem in 606 BC, we arrive at the year 1914. In 1914 the Jewish people began to return to their homeland. If we add 120 years, Genesis 6:3, to 1914 we arrive at 2034. The probable year of the end of the Great Tribulation and the beginning of the Messianic Kingdom. Seventh calculation, the star of the apocalypse. Video number 6 of the Evidence series explains how supernovae form in galaxies. The rays of the supernova SN 1054 crossed the star Antares many years ago, causing it to explode. Today that lethal radiation is about to reach the Earth. We have confirmation of this in Luke 21:25-26. And there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, and on the earth distress of nations, in perplexity at the roaring of the sea and the waves, men fainting for fear and foreboding of those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. We have listed 7 signs of biblical and astronomical calculations, that unequivocally indicate a very specific date. In the next video of the series The Evidence we will talk about biblical signs of the pre-tribulation, predicted by Jesus, that are happening on earth. The entire series of videos The Evidence has a very specific final purpose. To fully understand the latest clips, it is necessary to listen to the previous ones. In practice, it is a path that will lead the visitor to take note of future events and take the appropriate steps. So we invite you to follow clip number 9 of the series The Evidence entitled, Biblical End Time Signs of the Pre-Tribulation.